Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Lisa, would you please take roll call? She'll be absent. Here. She'll be a little late.
Here.
Mr. Zabrowski.
Here.
Dr. McCree.
Here.
Ms. Ernesta. Here. Ms. Berry. Mr. Pisano. Mrs. Bennington. Here. Mr. Butwell.
Here.
Ms. Cocchiola. Here. Mrs. DeMaro. Here. Mrs. DeTuno. Here. Mr. Puckle. That could be like here, obviously. Mr. LeMay. Dr. McLean. Mrs. Prescash. Mrs. Middlebrooks. Here. Mrs. O'Leary. Here. Mrs. Shepherd. Ms. Thelma. Here. Ms. Weisel. Here. Summer North South, I think high school on the north. Leah. And Ryan.
Okay, thank you. Approval of agenda, additions, deletions, and chair's review. Do you have any additions or deletions? No? Okay. And it looks like we have, knock on wood, a pretty light agenda for this evening. So is there a motion to approve the agenda? Matt? Is there a second? Alicia, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The agenda is approved. Correspondence. Dr. Macri, I know you said you had a correspondence to share.
I do. I just have a couple. Good evening, everyone. We just wanted to share, we received a letter from Warm the Children, and this year, Cromwell Public Schools donated $1,279 to Warm the Children, which helped serve 270 families, approximately 493 children from birth through age 3 during the holiday season. And so we received a thank you letter. We could pass this around if you'd like. And then also a correspondence, just a thank you. We received a small STEM grant, but nothing is ever too small. This is very nice of a parent of ours, Tedeschi, Mrs. Tedeschi. She has children at CHS and CMS, and she's a structural engineer with Bentley Systems, and she applied for a grant for us, and we were selected, and the $250 was given to the Cromwell Robotics Club at Cromwell High School. So we just wanted to say thank you.
Wow, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and we thank her as well. Public comments. Before I read the rules for public comments, is there anyone here who would like to make one? All right, then we'll go right to celebrating our faculty and staff. And for that, we are at Cromwell High School this evening. And Mr. Kalko, would you like to come on up?
Good evening. Is Cameron Holcomb the first one on there?
Yes.
Staff?
Yes.
All right. Cameron, yeah. So I knew when I nominated and selected Cameron that this would be quite an experience. She does not like the limelight, does not like the spotlight. But when I talked with her about wanting to acknowledge her and recognize here the reasons for it, you know, we just went through NEASC. It was a very important process for us. And Cameron was a instrumental part in that. Many folks behind the scenes don't really recognize what she did to prepare us for this trip, for this visit. There were a lot of accommodations, recommendations that we got on that visit that were a direct result of her tireless efforts, whether it was designing our duty schedule to create 2 PLCs for teachers, whether it was her leader as a department facilitator, where she continued to work with her department and they crushed their curriculum work, or whether it was the school spirit and the climate that she brings to the building. The English department is notorious for how they are so close together, so tight-knit, and that's a testament to her leadership as a department facilitator. They've pushed many initiatives, like our school Halloween event, which we have students vote on in terms of which department has the best outfit. But again, it's things like that she brings to the table and really makes Cromwell High School an exceptional place to be. And one of my favorite things about Cameron is she will come to me without hesitation when I mess up. And she'll be the first one to tell me, like, listen, I respectfully disagree. This is what I think you need to do. But her feedback has made me a better leader and has made our school a better place, and our students in the English classes are benefiting from her leadership that she brings to the table. And for that reason and all the others that I've listed here, I wanted to recognize Cameron Holcomb as our staff member that we are celebrating here this evening. So congrats.
I'm also the first one to come in and say, nice job. You left that part out. Oh, yes, true.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I feel valued in this building every day, not just tonight. And Andrew and Kelly and Josh and Ramsey, when she was here, they are always willing to listen. They're always willing to answer questions, and I ask a lot of questions. And they're always willing to have those difficult conversations that work to move teaching and learning to a better place. They've given me a ton of opportunities to become better as an educator and as a leader, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we thank you so much. We value your expertise, your experience, and anything extra teachers are willing to do at the end of the day is always amazing. And I love the honesty and the school spirit. I think I remember that Halloween where the students were talking about it and bringing it home. So thank you.
They lost. They're salty about that. They are. You did. Okay. So next up for our students, if I could have Almasa Omarajic, Anne-Marie Mueller, and Joshua Steiga come on up. Make this as least awkward for you as possible. Come on up.
Not
so,
possible.
In recognizing these three students, I have a overview of each one, and it really was a celebration of the fine arts here at Cromwell High School. And so I'll start with Almasa Omarajic. So Almasa, come on up, Almasa, was nominated for the Cass Award for her dedication and exceptional talent in AP Art. She consistently goes above and beyond with her portfolio pieces and has served as a teaching assistant in other art classes all year. In addition, Ms. Obasi also wanted to bring everyone's attention to a solo mural in the art wing that Almasa has been working on, and she's the designer and captain artist of the 2025 senior mural. And for those who are unfamiliar, that's when you come in for our gym, for our basketball games or volleyball, that hallway, there's a senior mural each year, going back to, I believe, 2015 was the first year we started it, so we're now on year 10 of that. She has also been an active leader in the National Art Honor Society, serving as an executive board member and volunteering at every NAHS event to date. This year, Almasa has won the Silver Key Award in the Scholastic Art and Writing exhibit, earning a $100,000 scholarship to the Hartford Art School.
Wow.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Big deal. And she plans to use this scholarship to double major and pursue her dream of becoming an art teacher. So congratulations, Almasa. You've done phenomenal things, and you're not done yet. We know that. So congrats.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Anne-Marie, you're up. So every year, so this is from Mr. Schmidt. Every year, students from CHS have the opportunity to participate in the Northern Regional and All-State School Music Festivals. This year, we had a number of students who were awarded the experience through a competitive audition process in which they compete with other high school students around the state of Connecticut. One of our students, Anne-Marie Mueller, a CHS senior and three-time participant, made it into the All-State Orchestra with a near-perfect score, losing only 3 points out of a total of 270. Anne-Marie managed to demonstrate her amazing musicianship, work ethic, and musical talents to the judges. Anne-Marie received perfect scores on 2 out of the 3 categories on the rubric that made up those 270 points, and she has raised the bar for future students who will try out for this prestigious ensemble. So essentially, by her earning this position, she earned what's called principal trombone. And for those of you who are maybe into athletics, let's say, it is the equivalent to winning the state open, right? You are competing against the best in the state of Connecticut, and Anne-Marie was selected as the lead in all of those. So for that, I know, big deal. Congratulations.
Congratulations. So impressive.
And we have Joshua Steiga. So every year, the Connecticut Association of Schools awards one senior from each high school for their hard work and dedication in the field of performing arts. This year, Joshua Steiger received this award for his obvious passion and commitment to the music program. Along with talking and excelling in every music class offered at CHS, Josh has participated in all of our performing ensembles, the Northern Regional and All-State Music Festivals, and our Tri-M Music Honor Society. Josh has had multiple lead roles in our all-school productions, and even began his journey as a music educator by writing, rehearsing, and conducting a piece of music with the concert band, which happened at a concert this fall. For these reasons, we felt Josh fit the criteria for the Cass Performing Arts Award, and we would like to congratulate him as well for all of his amazing work at Cromwell High School in the music and arts community. So there are our best and brightest when it comes to the fine arts at Cromwell High School.
Very impressive. Thank you so much for highlighting them. Thank you for being here, and congratulations to all of you. Okay, reports of liaisons from Town Council, Board of Finance, Building Committee. We have reference A for a Building Committee report. I don't see anyone else here from the other committees. So we'll move on to report of student representatives, and we have our middle school representatives here this evening. Ryan and Zinnia here? Yes, she's here. So if you'd like to begin.
Across CMS, students are working hard to prepare for SBAC testing, which will begin on April 29th and conclude on May 12th at CMS. The 8th grade is hosting a pajama day on Friday, April 11th to help fund end-of-year activities. 6th grade would like to invite you to an upcoming community event. On Thursday, May 15th, between 4 to 5:30 p.m., Cromwell Middle School will host Butterfly Night, an evening of learning, community, and remembrance to conclude our unit on the Holocaust. We encourage all families and community members to join us for this event, as the support of the community helps to recognize our learners' talents and dedication throughout the unit. Our hope is that students walk away from this powerful experience with a deeper understanding of the Holocaust, recognizing the ways that individuals remained silent while others were persecuted, thus allowing the Holocaust to continue. We hope that students will feel a strong connection and duty to participate in keeping any communities they are a part of in their lives inclusive, free of anti-Semitism, discrimination, and any kind of bullying and antagonistic behavior through standing up for their fellow community members. This presentation will include displays of students learning and is appropriate for all ages, as it is self-guided and you can participate as much as you are comfortable with. We hope you will join us to participate in Butterfly Night on May 15th. Cromwell Middle School's Into the Woods Junior closed on Sunday, March 16th, 2025. With almost 50 kids in the cast and almost 20 in the crew, all students had a memorable experience infused with professional standards and cemented in the foundation of kindness, respect, and community. We had 4 shows in total and entertained approximately 530 audience members. Looking forward to seeing you in the audience next year in our new theater and new school. Student Council. Sneaker donations continue to pour in for the Student Council. Thank you to the CMS community. We have collected and donated 3 large trash bags of shoes. The CMS Student Council reports a successful Lucky Grand promotion, which raised over $100 from students who choose to show kindness by sending positive messages and trinkets to one another.
The Writing Club is CMS's newest club. Young authors gather to write and share their work. In the future, we would like to publish club members' writings so the rest of the community can share in their excellent writing. The Yearbook Club is busy collecting yearbook quotations from 8th grade students. The third optional restaurant trip offered through the grade 7 social studies department met at Jamaican Kitchen in Rocky Hill on April 2nd. Over 30 kids joined for authentic jerk chicken, fried plantains, beef patties. There will be one more trip this year. Select Choir is well underway preparing for their spring concert on May 21st. They will be joining the jazz band and 8th grade band for a Fantastic Festivals music competition and a trip to Lake Compounds on May 30th. Art Club's colorful murals continue to brighten the hallways walls of CMS under the direction of Mr. Glowa. The CMS Jazz Band is excited to perform at our spring concert on May 14th. The district-wide jazz festival on May 15th and the Fantastic Festivals adjudicated field trip on May 30th. Throughout our rehearsals and performances, students are enhancing their skill sets in performing, responding, connecting, and creating music. As an ensemble, jazz band members are continuously refining their performance through self and peer evaluation with the addition of feedback from other professional musicians in the coming weeks. It will be eye-opening and inspiring for middle school students to see the high school jazz ensemble, as well as hear the Infinity Band, a group featuring professional musicians, at the district-wide jazz festival. Looking forward to an action-packed end of the school year. The Polar Bear Running Club concluded its season of running at the end of March. The baseball, softball, and track teams have concluded tryouts and began practicing this week. All 3 teams are excited for the upcoming season.
Wow, thank you both. That's a lot going on in the middle school. It's like a race to the end of the year now. And I just want to mention that May 15th event. I thought, thank you for the invitation. And maybe that's something we want to extend to the senior centers and the Covenant Living. I know they're interested in connecting with us, so maybe that's something we could do to help with that. Just an idea. All right, from there we'll go to town collaboration updates. And I just want to mention, I know Dr. Macri will get into this later in her update, but I just want to thank Dr. Macri and her team for the budget presentation. Mr. Boutwell, his first time officially presenting, although I know you've attended them in the past, and all the administration that was there last Thursday. It's a long night, and it's a lot. So everyone handled themselves so beautifully, and we're just really proud of you and everyone. And the result was, I thought it was a pretty good result, so couldn't ask for better than that. That's the only thing I wanted to mention. And anything else on, and Claudio Bazzano, I did want to, he's not here tonight, but I mean, he's done so much for us to, collaborate with the town on the capital expenses and the plan for next year. So he's really done a ton of work this year, and I just want to mention that. So a lot of collaboration, lots of collaboration. And from here, we'll move on to superintendent's updates and responses to Board of Ed comments and any action items from our prior meeting.
Claudio Bazzano was coming. I did give him the evening off because he has to go. He and Mr. Butwell were at the meeting until about midnight last week, and then tomorrow he has an evening meeting to talk about CNR projects. So I said, don't worry, don't come tonight. I'll answer any questions, and hopefully there won't be any, too many. He has really been working tirelessly and getting so much done for our district, and it's just been a wonderful experience for everyone. So just quickly, as you all know, we were cut $81,494. We went in asking for a 6.25, and we were granted a 6.03%, and that's just the $81,494, which Mr. Butwell will be taking out of the electricity line, the utilities line, as mentioned, and hopefully it will be less than predicted, although what we realized this month was that WIS's was higher than usual. So all considering, I think we did very well. So appreciative to the Board of Finance for them understanding that our students have needs and our buildings have needs. Our graduation date is the same. Our promotion for the middle school is June 11th, and the family should have received something by now if they have an 8th grader, and then we'll have our evening graduation on the same day. It's too much. We're trying to figure out how to do it the day before, but then students would think they actually can't come to school at the middle school, and then it goes against our attendance. So they'll be on the same day. It'll be the morning and in the evening, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal, we hope. And we are preparing to move. We got all of our boxes. It's going to be fun, but it's pretty very organized, and it should happen over a 2-week period. And we are looking forward to to the move. And a lot of people have put in a ton of work, especially Mrs. Cocciola, into planning for that move. And we hope it goes off without a hitch. And that's pretty much it.
Can I just confirm, because I might just have it wrong in my calendar, but I have the 8th grade graduation as the 11th and high school graduation as the 10th. Is that wrong?
Am I wrong? Are they
don't
both
know.
on the 11th, or is the high school on the
Mrs.
10th?
Cocciola, do you remember, is it the 11th or the 10th?
They're both the 11th.
They're both the 11th. Okay. Okay.
And the last day of school is the 12th. 12th.
Okay. Both on the 11th. But I thought,
Question.
yeah, go ahead.
I thought last year we discussed this and having it the same day, and we were all against it. And we had the same issue last year where students had to go back to school after the 8th grade promotion,
So what we did,
and we were all in agreement that it should not be on the same day.
the only reason why it's extra stressful this year, we would have to do the middle school on June 10th, the high school on June 11th, and then the last day on June 12th. Because everybody has to be out. I can't have one soul in that building after June 13th.
So this is just because we're
This is-
moving
we're
this year. It's a
moving and
special
it's
situation.
gonna
It won't be
cause-
something we'll be doing going
It shouldn't
forward.
be, no.
Okay,
We-
just
we-
wanted to confirm that.
We looked at so many different things, and we're just stressed out about getting out of that building. So
And they're half days now anyway, right?
they're half days
Yeah.
because the middle school is going to be using those as packing days, so the kids will leave, and yeah. So yeah, this will most likely
this will
just
be
be
a
a 1-year thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Any questions for Dr. Macri on that update? Okay, we'll move on to presentations and reports of administration, the 2024-2025 budget update, reference B in your packets, and we'll have our Director of Finance come on up, Mr. Butwell, to explain how things change so quickly.
Yes, they do change quickly. Hi, everyone. So we're continuing to refine our projections as related to special ed reimbursements. We're seeing increased confidence in our state's excess cost contributions, some of which we've already received, and we're still working on the amount of reimbursement from our choice program students who receive special ed services. That's a little bit uncertain yet. We have a projected figure, but we're waiting either a partial payment or some kind of confirmation to verify that actual amount. So that's a little bit of a question mark for us. And as you know, special education needs can emerge at any point during the year. So since our last update, we've encumbered an additional $335,000 to meet new service and transportation needs for some of our special ed students. In addition, we've been collaborating with our district leadership, and we've been reviewing other unanticipated expenses, such as those tied to instructional support, professional development, and necessary facility and equipment updates. So you may notice that in some lines we have additional encumbrance amounts, but purchases have not yet been finalized for those. This approach is allowing us to remain flexible and responsive as we monitor the remainder of the year. And from now till June, we'll continue to take a measured approach and closely observe developments, preparing for any additional needs.
Any questions for Mr. Butwell? Catherine?
So at our last meeting, we had a large excess that we were allowing different schools to go through and purchase things that have been put on hold and pushed to the side for the past several years. And I see that we're significantly down from that. Is that as a result of the schools purchasing things, or are there changes in our special ed costs that have impacted this that we weren't anticipating? Or what exactly are they related
It's a combination of both. So a large amount of that, as I just mentioned, is we had to encumber additional $335,000 for special ed services. But we've also been working with the directors and the principals to identify, other expenses and needs at each building and for each department. So under the encumbered column, We have encumbered amounts, but we haven't made those purchases yet because, again, we're waiting for, we're going to go a little further through the year before we make decisions about final purchasing. So the money's there, and it's sort of, we're scheduling what could potentially be purchased, but haven't made that final decision yet.
Okay, so our unexpected special ed costs were over $300,000. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Alicia.
Mr. Brotwell, I assume that's in an outplaced tuition, but also in transportation costs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt and I were both at a recent public hearing and got into some discussion, and there tends to be confusion at local boards, but also really from our state legislators about the cost of transportation and how much that really plays into special education outplaced costs. So we were talking about ways we could strategize and collaborate with other communities about how to really reduce those costs or work on pooling some of those transportation expenses. So something maybe for us to talk about in the future if we do that.
I actually read the memo. I read the memo that you guys were talking about. So we have been working with surrounding districts with students to try to carpool quite often. We do a lot of work with Middletown. But we are getting the one-to-one situations where we are just not having any luck with students being able to share a bus has been the hugest problem, more so the last 2 years than ever. So that's and the costs are just, as you guys know, astronomical, and we can't say no. They give us a number and we're like, okay. It's terrible, actually. But I did read some of the letters of, once a student, what Matt was talking to me about, once a student is ours, can we keep that student so that we know what what we're going to end up with at the end of the year. That did get sent to us through Fran Rabinowitz. So I was happy to see that it actually is being discussed. So that was good.
Yeah, actually, we were pretty happy because I brought that back in January, actually, to the legislative body. I shared it with a number of legislators, and it looks like it moved forward in some fashion.
Yeah, I was really happy to see it.
But when I actually specifically mentioned that here in Cromwell, in my testimony, boy, that was only last week. That feels like it was so long ago. I actually mentioned that in Cromwell. I knew that there were situations where we were sharing transportation costs by having students from nearby other nearby districts. We were kind of carpooling essentially to try and save, and that I would like to see the state come up with some kind of a way to improve that process, because you're doing it on your own, and if there was some kind of collaborative effort where districts could say, hey, I need to get a kid from here to there, does anyone else have anyone else nearby need to do that without having to call everyone individually, stuff like that would be actually helpful. So
That would be so helpful if we worked with a RESC, and we can all work. I mean, if the RESCs can take it on. I was happy to see that come through. I was elated because we come up with some really great ideas and then they just fall on deaf ears, and that one is a really great idea, and this is a great idea. If we can get someone else like a RESC to handle all those different, because once we try 2 to 3 companies, we're out of luck, or 2 to 3 towns, and sometimes the companies won't tell us if they actually have someone going because they're going to make more money. So you're better off working directly with the towns, because we're the ones trying to save.
I pitched a number of proposed bills this session to any number of legislators. I've met with a number of them this year. And the one thing that was the most well received, I think actually universally well received, was the one that had to do with when a student who has outplaced special needs relocates from one district to another, that the sending district actually keeps providing the funds for what was budgeted for through the remainder of that year.
Yep, I saw it in there.
So that districts can plan, and that was a lot of that received a lot of really positive feedback, and because I think logically it makes sense. We can't have budgets keep getting thrown apart, and at the same time, we really want to care for these kids without running into these kinds of issues where it causes an issue district wide.
Right.
Right. So
no, you're right.
that one I'm hopeful will just continue moving forward until it in some way, shape, or form becomes
Me too.
becomes written into law. So let's hope. Keep our
Yep.
fingers crossed.
It
I
was
will
in there.
continue
That was a huge
speaking on it.
positive. It was in there.
Anyone else who can speak on it will absolutely help. The more voices, you know how that works.
Yep.
Thank you both for your advocacy. And next time, if there is a memo, I didn't realize there was a memo that came out afterwards. Feel free to send it to me so I could share it with the rest of the board. Be nice.
You're referencing the memo that came out from Superintendent's Association.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 We have so many.
If it's
This-
no, only because it was specific to our board.
Yeah, this session is there's a select committee on special education. It's a brand new legislative committee that's really focused on broad, how can we get the best services to our kids in the most efficient way possible. So I've been very engaged in some of that legislative work. Matt's been very engaged in some of that legislative work, and hopefully we can come to some strategies that will impact cost savings for our community.
Yeah,
So we'll certainly keep you posted. Thanks, Selena. It's a good reminder.
It's a cost savings, and it's doing what's right for kids with special needs, because at the end we are all struggling with the financial component. Let's just face it, every single town. But if you know what your struggle is going to be for that year, okay, then this year we may end up in what instead of, and I have to say, it's been wonderful. Sari can attest to it. A lot of districts, not all, we are one of those districts that we play nice and say, okay, let's split the cost for the rest of the year. Let's figure this out together, because we don't want the child to lose the services. So we do the right thing. So if everyone can just realize that one year you might financially be a loser, but every year the kid is going to be the winner, is the best. So we've gotten somewhere with that this year, and I know they do not. Sari is wonderful, and she comes to me, and I'm like, what's good? What's best for the kid? And some won't share with us, and I'm happy to say that Middletown has been very reciprocal in sharing services and paying half and splitting. Some towns, not so much.
Well, there were by my last count, there were 638 bills proposed specifically that would affect education. And of the 638, I think when I went through most of them, not all, I'm not that good, I want to say there was approximately 150 that directly affected boards of education budgets and students.
Yeah.
And the rest of them had a lot to do with how other agencies interact with schools. For example, how local police would interact with the school in a situation and stuff like that. But there was over 150 that just had to do with how schools are operating.
Yeah, you just saw my update a couple weeks ago when I said to you, I think I spent most of my time just reading and understanding what is going on, because we're keeping an eye on a federal level, right? But we cannot lose sight of the state level. It's huge, and there's so much going on. So, yeah, it's been fun.
So can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
How do we, as a board, want to engage in some of that work? Because I didn't testify for the Cromwell Board of Ed, and Matt testified for his, but if there are certain things that, maybe part of it is sharing information, but if we want to engage, I think you and I talked about this once before, maybe just we could share some of the things that are happening, because we're involved in this every day.
Sure. As in like an update at a meeting, or
even
are you
in
saying
between, because if we want to testify in a public hearing, you find out only 5 days before what the proposed legislative language is, and then the hearing comes 5 days later, so you don't really have time to wait for a board meeting. But maybe we can share some of this stuff as it happens. So I know, for example, there's going to be bills released on special education from the select committee early next week for a public hearing, probably early the following week. If there's something in particular that impacts our work, I'm happy to share that with everyone, and then we can decide if we want to say something.
like a group letter, you're saying, on behalf
or
of the board?
testimony from the district, if we want to do
The
that.
tough part is you find out that the hearing is coming, and you have almost, in many cases, like
24 hours.
to write testimony. So like I found out about this one and wrote my testimonial letter, which ended up being like 2.5 pages long, that night in like 2 hours to make sure I got it in. So
Same.
it's the problem is it's a quick process. So for us to try and handle it on a month-to-month basis would be very difficult to do.
It's not the most conducive process to public engagement, despite the fact that it is the public hearing process for any state laws. But the turnaround makes it kind of challenging. But
Yeah. If you
I'm
have
happy to
other
share.
ideas, just connect with me and we can
Yep.
figure out a way to do it.
So just on the transportation, we took a $240,000 hit this past month, right? Have we ever looked into possibly like purchasing vehicles and building our own transportation and maybe even subbing that out to other towns. Obviously, that would not fall under the superintendent's role, but I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, if we're talking, what are we talking per student to transport?
It could be, it's, we had a particular situation, I won't say, that was about $72,000, just one particular situation. I wouldn't even know where to start with that, but I believe that's, if we don't figure this out in legislation, that's the only way we're going to be able to save money. We have the 2 small vans, but it's not.
Yeah, obviously
it's
this
not
would be a
really
whole
enough.
undertaking and it wouldn't just happen overnight, but if legislation doesn't catch up here, we should start looking at other options.
Yeah.
I looked into this a couple years ago just to try and get some comparative numbers, and there is it's hard to pin down exact numbers when you're doing this. You're well aware. You've done stuff like that before, but comparatively, districts that have their own systems of transportation, there's an initial overhead, but there's a long-term savings. So
Yeah.
it's pricey. I mean, buses are expensive, right? You have to hire someone to run the show. There's a lot of expense associated with starting it up. But once you get it going by like year 8 or 9,
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're
realizing
talking
the savings.
70,000 to transport one student,
Right.
you know, you can write off capital expense vehicles and
Right, and some,
so
I
on
know,
and so
talking
forth.
to some folks who were in districts when this was going on, some districts started out with that, not dealing with buses, but just dealing with, a small fleet of vans just to
Yeah.
get it started and to see how it went. And then after it went well, which I think it did in nearly every case I looked at, I only looked at 5 or 6 that I was aware of, but that's generally the starting process is a small fleet of like 5 or 6 vans and trying to do it that way. But that's a huge undertaking.
yeah, I mean, we would definitely have to put someone in charge of it, but if it's going to save the district money, it's something we
Right.
should look into.
Right.
I do think that if we did invest in 10 passenger vans, about 5 of them, and put someone in charge of that under Chris, I do think that in 5 years we would see the benefit. I truly do, because it's astronomical
Yeah, it's crazy.
of what we're paying because this is really transporting just one student, right? So if it's $72,000 for one student and you can buy a van for about $50,000, right there, it's a savings, and we own that van.
But that can change, and then you don't have that student. But you're saying you could lease it out to another district?
Right, like we would have to like do a
Yeah.
slow rollout and find out all the specifics, but
You
Do
can
we
still
wanna
sub-
add this
you can
to
still
something to
subsidize
think
it
about
with
for the future?
Subcontractors.
yeah, and sub it
Yeah.
out.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I'd have to like really find
Yeah.
someone whose expertise. That's my own personal opinion after all the money as a superintendent and assistant superintendent who oversaw transportation. I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
And if we know some contacts, I'd be happy to reach out for some information.
That's a good thought. Let me get to Catherine first. What's
Don't we
next?
have to be concerned about what's equipped inside of these vans? Because
We do.
there are some kids that have special needs for the vans and transportation and limits them. So that is very exorbitant costs that go into adapting and adjusting. And then we have to look at insurance costs that go on top of all of that, which I'm assuming would be very high if we're transporting. So there's a lot to look at but it might be something worth exploring if legislation doesn't change. But there are going to be
there'll
large
be
ongoing
costs.
costs. I don't know the size of the districts you looked at, but we also have to keep in mind we're not a large district. And looking at the history of maybe the past 5 to 10 years of what our special ed costs have been related to transportation and what type of vehicles were required to transport these students is a big piece of it.
That's huge. And I would say that in the beginning, we would be transporting students with special needs that are more, that are not medically fragile, because of exactly what you're saying. It would be astronomical, and there's so many laws. Because right now we transport students with special needs, but not exorbitant, Yes, everything you just said has to be taken into consideration. Because this is something that would have to be really researched and studied, and like how would we make this happen, and what would we think about Because if they don't do anything with legislation, I don't think we're going to be alone with having
When
to think of
when do we
ways.
expect to have an idea?
June?
June? Okay, so
Yeah, I
let's
wonder
talk
if they'll-
about it again after
if they
that.
drop it or
We'll do an update
what
after
do you
that.
think? That's what I'm saying, or do they study for it? Yeah.
Okay. Alicia, you
Yep.
wanted
So
to add something?
at Edelbrook, we started our own transportation service because we had 5 children that could not get access to transportation. They couldn't get to school, and districts just couldn't afford to pay it. So we did this not that long ago for a very small cohort. So I'm happy to share the information that we gathered. But it's not just the specialized equipment; it's finding folks that are willing to drive
Yes.
vehicles, because regular bus drivers, there's a shortage. And then many of the individuals, if they have particular medical needs or if they have behavioral needs, you need to staff the vehicles with also a bus,
Monitor.
a bus aide or a monitor to be able to provide that support. Sometimes you have students that can't be in a vehicle with another student. So it is complicated, and just staffing that and managing that is a whole other
Yeah, we would need
animal that we would really have to gather data, think about cost, think about risk, think about all the regulatory factors that need to go into it before we make any decisions. Because on paper, it may look like it's a cost savings, but it may not be worth the insurance or the long term.
That's a good
Risks.
point, and that's
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
the reason that they charge so much for
We would
for
love
these
to.
services.
But I'm happy to share
Yeah,
what
to
we
share
did.
with us. If Chris
Yeah.
and I can come and sit down with you
Yeah,
one day,
sure.
Sari, that would be great.
Good ideas.
I'd be happy to help out wherever I can as well. So
Are you going to drive the buses?
if they want to get there 6 a.m., sure, I'll drive.
I've seen him drive. My kid's not going on it.
So let's circle back on this later on after we know more. But thanks. Good ideas. Good input. Any other questions for Mr. Boutwell on the budget update? No. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
From here, we'll move on to new business. We have an action item. Mr. Cuckold, I don't know if you need to come up for this as every year, but approval of the class of 2026 Washington, D.C. senior class trip, reference C in your packets. Do we have any questions on that? Go ahead, Catherine.
Did we drop the additional trip? Because I know a couple of years ago, we used to go to Philadelphia, then we stopped at New York City on the way back. Are we removing that piece of it and shortening the trip a little bit?
We are removing that piece. We are not exactly shortening the trip. We're spending more time in D.C.
Okay.
And part of that, too, was the quote we did get back this year, including a stop in New York City, was, I think our quote right now is like $900 to $1,100 per student to go to D.C. With New York City, it would have been excess of $1,500. And so the other part being, too, that students, by that point in the trip, they're pretty well spent. Where Philly was kind of like just a pit stop. It didn't really work out well. Yeah. And we are too, just so everyone knows, this is a trip that's attended by 60 to 70% of the senior class. So we are hoping next year, and actually we're hoping to get something before the board this year as well, to do a full all-encompassing senior class day trip to Six Flags, something to that, some type of bonding event. So everyone can access that. We can cover that easily. Because this is the reality here is we do cover costs for kids, but at the end of the day, there's still a huge chunk that can't attend for whether it's a sport conflict, family obligations, or just don't feel comfortable asking the district for financial assistance. So,
Just something that always bothers me, and I hope the athletic director doesn't get too upset. But I just always wish that students that participate in sports would have the opportunity to go, because it's really such a, once in a lifetime experience to go with your senior class. And then it's sad that some would have to, I assume in October, miss soccer or whatever it is that's going on at that
Yeah.
time.
It's disappointing that they get penalized for not being there because they go on a class trip. That's what's the most disappointing. Is
Yeah.
Some coaches do penalize the kids for not being there on their senior class trip.
Yeah.
So it dissuades other students from going when they come up to be seniors.
And we haven't done the whole class trip before with.
that's all we used to do,
Oh.
was the whole class trip to Six Flags. We did that for a very long time. 95% of the grade would go because it's a day trip. They would have a good time. We do it in usually late May. And then I want to say in 2015, 2016 or so was the first time they started doing DC because there was a push to do something different than Six Flags. But the reality of the senior trip, I would use that term loosely because, again, to have 60 to 70% is the best percentage that you have going. And in terms of athletics, we've moved everything. We've come up to an issue with cross country of late because of they have their tournament at a neutral site location, their Shoreline Conference tournament, which causes a conflict for us. We're trying to resolve that for future years, but we've kind of been stuck up against that for a few years now because we're able to move everything else off that.
Oh.
Other districts just say, hey, we're going,
Mhm.
and we're not moving a soccer game. We're not moving a volleyball game, which we might consider doing as well down the road, and just saying, hey, if you can make it, you can make it. But it's a challenge.
But
Okay.
isn't it, I mean, students getting penalized for not being at practices that they miss as a result of going on this class trip? That's extremely
You mean as in
disappointing.
playing time in the next
Yeah,
game?
they get docked playing time.
Guess it's a choice,
and-
right? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's a senior class trip. It shouldn't be held.
Yeah,
It's disappointing.
yeah, that's the first time hearing of it. I'm not, it's the first time you bringing it up, Catherine. It's the first time I've heard about it. So I do know coaches are told they're not supposed to. Yep. Yep.
Mr.
No,
LeMay
we're
looks
all
like
set.
he has some
We're
words to
good.
say about this. Oh, okay.
I mean, unless there's nothing. I mean, we tell coaches that not to
Okay.
penalize. So if someone brought that forward, we would address that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Alicia.
Yep.
Could you just share a thank you to Mrs. Turner and the chaperones that organized this trip? This is a lot of responsibility and a huge amount of work that goes into it. My husband just got back from organizing his class trip in his district, and I just know how much time, effort, heart they put into making this happen. And it's not part of their jobs; it's above and beyond. So just please extend a thank you to Miss Turner and everybody else that makes this happen for the kids.
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you, Alicia. Agree.
We'll do.
All right. With that being said, is there a motion to approve the trip?
Motion.
By Catherine, second by Alan. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The trip is approved. Thank you. All right. From here, we'll go on to the departmental update for grades 3, 4, and 5. And for that, we have Mrs. Bennington.
So before Ms. Binghamton begins, we have been looking at ways to increase student engagement and performance in grades 4 and 5. We are trying something different, something that other districts have tried. Cromwell has not done it. We won't know if something works unless we give it a try. There's research that supports this. There's research that doesn't. But the way Dr. McLean and Miss Binghamton and Miss Berry have really worked hard at laying this out in a way in which it looks pretty different than I've seen it happen in the past, including myself being a teacher in departmentalization in elementary school. We have high hopes. So Miss Binghamton's they've been working on this for months. So it's time to let you know about it, and then we're going to give you a plan of how we're going to inform our students and our parents.
Thank you, Dr. Macri. You're right. So as I moved into my new role this summer, and Mr. Butwell,
Can you just double check your mic? I'm sorry. Or maybe you're
it's
just
red, but maybe I'm not
quieter
close enough. Is
speaker.
that better?
That's
Okay.
better, yes. Thanks.
So as I transitioned to my new role this summer, and Mr. Butwell helped, and Mrs. Berry helped, we really started diving into those conversations. The further we move away from the pandemic, we expected to see our state scores increase, specifically that on the aspect, and we haven't seen that pivot yet. So we have spent a lot of time this year really taking a look at how can we maximize what we have going on for us right now, because we know without a doubt that our teachers are working as hard as they possibly can to give their best to the students. We know that our students are bright. We know they're thriving in their learning, but for whatever reason, we're not seeing that marriage between the state scores and what we're seeing on a day-to-day in our classroom. So we started talking to other districts, we started talking to colleagues, and something that a lot of districts are shifting towards in the grades 4 and 5, because I do want to just clarify, this is not something that we want to see happen in our third grade classrooms. We really feel like our third grade classrooms, it's a transition from ECS to Woodside, and that's enough of a change for our younger students. We also recognize that what we're doing in third grade is working. We see those scores making a steady increase. So if it's not broken, let's not fix it. But in our 4 and 5, there's a lot of research behind that natural transition to a middle school environment where we do one change during the day for our students. So the idea began that we would have our students splitting their day. So the first 3 hours of the day would be with one teacher. And in that setting, we would be doing grammar, vocabulary, the read aloud, and all of the math instruction. And then the students have their recess and lunch switch. And then they go to a second teacher in the afternoon. And the second teacher would be doing all of the writing and all of the reading. So our 4th and 5th graders would have 2 teachers, one primarily hosting the math, one primarily hosting the reading and the writing. That also allows our coaches to really spend undivided attention and time in specific classrooms with reading and writing or with math, which means we're doubling the opportunities for our teachers to be getting expert support and extra PLC time in those subject areas, in addition to them really becoming dialed into the instruction that they're providing for their students, again, trying to bring forth that even more top-notch instruction than we're seeing right now. We also like the fact that for our students, it gives them 2 opportunities to have connections with staff members. Our goal is always to have our students have a connection with a staff member, and as much time and effort as we put into those classroom placements over the summer, sometimes the fit is just not quite right. And giving a student the opportunity to have 2 teachers in their life on an everyday thing just sort of gives us that extra edge of making sure that student has a connection with a staff member during that day. This model also allows us to incorporate what we're referring to as a PLT time, which is a personalized learning time. So what's happening right now is student service, if they're receiving MTSS, formerly known as SRBI, or a special education service, they might be pulled out during their block at any time during the block. So unfortunately, they could be missing whole class instruction. They could be missing targeted instruction, small group instruction, independent time. This model allows us to build in a 30-minute block into both their math block and their reading block, where all students who receive services under an MTSS model or a special education model are leaving at the same time. That leaves our students who are able to gain instruction through a Tier 1 model in the classroom where they would get their small group instruction while other students are receiving additional support. Then when our students who receive additional supports outside the classroom come back in, they get that guaranteed second dose of instruction, which is really what the MTSS and special education model is about. So we also really strongly believe that this model will give all of our students access to an equalized education that is difficult to navigate when you don't have that block built into the day. And then again, talking about that transition, just having one transition during the day in 4th and 5th grade is getting them just that much more prepared to be organized 6th graders at the middle school, making more steady transitions throughout the day. We wanted to make sure that we shared this theory, our plan rather, with all of you before we shared it with the community in general. So by the end of the week, we'll be sending a communication to our families, letting them know about the new model. And we are also still deciding which teachers will be teaching which subject areas. We want to make sure that we have just the right staff teaching in each department, and we want to make sure we have balanced teams as well. Any questions?
Matt.
Just a couple things kind of come to mind when looking at this. Sounds like actually a pretty cool idea, honestly, for a lot of the reasons you stated. And I'm sure you're thinking about this. I'm just kind of curious to see what your thoughts are. But if you're having, you have one class that has one teacher in the morning and a different teacher in the afternoon. Have you? And maybe it's something you haven't gotten to yet, but have you thought about how those 2 teachers are how you're going to facilitate regular communication between the 2 teachers? Because I'm assuming that if the ELA teacher who's there in the morning, in the afternoon, that same ELA teacher is in a different class in the afternoon, right? That's going to be.
So they'll swap, right? We'll have an A teacher and a B teacher, and they swap mornings and afternoons.
So, for example, we have students who are on behavior plans that last the length of the day, where it's a behavior modification plan. There might be rewards in place, that sort of thing. So there's going to have to be communication between the morning teacher and the afternoon teacher to do that. I would assume, and then. So I'm just wondering about how is that communication going to be facilitated? Where's that time going to come from in the day? That would just be one question. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. Just things to maybe think about. Then you already answered the teachers are just kind of swap in the morning and afternoon. But I guess the other thing is how have the teachers responded to this idea? Are they on board? Are they nervous about it? Are they excited about it? Just out of curiosity.
So I'll answer your second question first, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think they're feeling all the things you're feeling. The teachers are definitely ready for change. They have a lot of new curriculum coming down the pike, and so they're really excited about being able to specialize in terms of that curriculum and really improve their skills in some very specific subject areas. They're also super excited. Sarah Galati and Erica Ballas, who are our literacy and numeracy coaches at Woodside, our time with them is highly coveted. So to tell the teachers they're going to get twice the amount of time with those fantastic coaches is something they're super, super excited about. But definitely it is a change, and I think change is always something that we're a little apprehensive until we get there, but they are ready for this change. As far as the behavior intervention plans that you had mentioned, that's absolutely a piece we always, like I talked about, I think a big piece of this drive for us is making sure that all of our students feel supported and valued and part of the Tier 1 classroom. So typically we spend a lot of time making sure that students with behavior plans, that their case manager, their classroom teachers, and any paraeducator that's involved in the student has the opportunity to meet. And then we have a fantastic BCBA at Woodside, Janine Martin, who is constantly connecting with teachers, coming into classrooms above and beyond student service hours, just to make sure we're always servicing our students to the best of our ability. Behavior plans typically travel with the student, either with them an individual, or if they have a one-to-one paraeducator, it goes with that person as well. We'll also have shared. So our goal is, in terms of those PLCs, that professional learning community, we typically have 4 in a month. So our ideal plan right now is that the first 2 PLCs in a month will be specialized to your curriculum area. And then the third week, everybody will go to their alternate area. So if I specialize in ELA during that third week, I'm going to a math PLC because it's important for me to know what curriculum is being brought up. And it's important that I continue to develop my skills in all subject areas. So embedded in those PLC times would be time to talk about our BIPs, any IEPs, because that's going to be an important piece too. And then we'll be certainly careful when we schedule PPTs to make sure that either, depending on the student's goals and objectives, because not all of our special education students have goals in reading, writing, and math, to make sure the appropriate teacher for that subject area is available. I think our biggest piece that we're still working out right now are conferences. That's actually my biggest question right now, is trying to make that work, because I think it's super important for parents to have the opportunity to sit with the people that are educating their students and hear specifically about their goals.
So I'm really more looking at it from the point of view of the two teachers working in those classrooms, having opportunities during the day to communicate, only because, you know, you've been doing this a while like I have. You understand that a student can start the day fine and things can break down during the day, and that needs, if there's going to be a switch in teachers, there needs to be some way to effectively communicate that, what's been done so far in the day, you know, what suggestions they have to continue working towards in the day. I mean, you know, kids are kids; things can change pretty quickly. So I'm just.
So I apologize. Maybe I misunderstood your
fine.
question.
I was just using that. I was using
There's some
behavior plans as an
conversation happening
example,
right now in terms of locations of classrooms and considering whether or not we need to have A, B teachers housed next to each other for just that purpose,
That's a good idea.
allowing for that quick conversation. And then shared teachers, A, B, and then C, D, and then E, F teams would have shared lunch, shared recess, and we're looking to make some changes to those blocks as well, because I think we all know when we're dealing with students at this age level, we want them to have as much movement during their day as possible. It really helps to do their learning. So we're making some shifts in terms of extending recess time and then shortening the lunchtime just a little bit to give our students extra movement. We're finding that most of our students are done with lunch within 15 minutes. So to manage them for the additional 15 minutes is not to their best interest. So making sure what we would do is switch it off so the teachers had that extra time together. But to your point, there will be a learning curve here, and we are open to all feedback and suggestions, because there are little nuances that we want to make sure we're catching.
So the last piece I had, and I apologize, I'm taking a lot of time. Don't hurt me, Catherine. Has there been any discussion around, and I know that this is kind of like a buzzword recently, but around incorporating some basic early on executive functioning skills with this new model, only because I know that we're seeing at 6th, 7th, 8th grade and up, there is kind of a deficit in students being able to manage their own materials, manage their own studying, a lack of study skills in general, which I think, I hate to blame things on the pandemic. I think a lot of that came from being out of class for so much time, that those skills that were kind of normally just, inherently taught kind of fell by the wayside. But has there been any discussion about incorporating some more of those skills into the class with this changeover? And if there hasn't, fine. I'm just
No.
thinking maybe something to consider.
Absolutely, and it'll be an integral part of this because students will be going between 2 classrooms, so it'll actually be embedded in that transition, right?
Okay.
Making
Yeah,
sure
because
you-
it'll also be necessary having 2 different teachers at that point.
Correct. So the specifics of that have not been navigated in terms of lessons, but the awareness that that will be an important part of making sure this is a successful transition is absolutely something we're talking about.
Thanks. I definitely look forward to hearing more about the ideas.
Okay, we have some more questions. Catherine, go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just going to start with 2.
Sure.
Because other people have questions. One
How
is,
considerate.
are we are we having the teachers move, or are we having the students move from one classroom to another?
Students will move from one classroom to another, which kind of builds off of the executive functioning piece that Matt was just talking about.
Okay. And my second question is this going to be implemented for next year, or okay? But we're rolling it out at the end of this. We're rolling it out to parents for this at the end.
Yes, we're looking
later
for
this week.
a fall 2025 start, but just want to make sure we're giving parents heads up so that when those class lists come out, parents are already asking for classroom teacher assignments for next year.
Seriously? It's beginning of April. It's too early.
Starts in September.
We will start doing class lists right after April vacation because it just does take so long to navigate and make sure we have all of the pieces right. But yeah, so as they're asking for teachers, we're thinking in the back of our head, well, actually, surprise, you're probably going to have 2 next year.
Right.
So we definitely want to make sure we're as transparent with parents as possible because this will be a change not only for students, but also for parents.
And maybe, do you plan on, if needed, having an information session, depending upon how many questions come firing back at you with this?
Our goal is, and Friday is my best case scenario, but I might be using some time over April vacation to organize something. I think if we have frequently asked questions that get sent out with the information will be helpful because then we can be a little bit more proactive. So actually some of the questions that you are all asking me tonight, things that have just sort of been engraved in every decision I'm making that I'm not even really cognizant of are kind of great jump off points for me to consider in terms of how I share that information with families.
And Kelly Cloutier, go ahead.
So my question is, since with the multi-age, how does that affect them because they already switched for math?
We will not be touching the multi-age classrooms.
Okay.
They actually, this is part of what I think makes the multi-age so successful is they function to a very similar model. So we see no reason, again, sort of that mentality, if it's not broken, don't fix it. That's a model that's worked really well for a lot of our students. So we won't be touching the multi-age classrooms.
And my other question is having all the kids go for their support all at the same time, is the staff able to accommodate for all the kids going at the same time instead of staggered throughout the day?
So on paper, it looks good. Part of what we're doing is also looking at our special education groupings for next year. Typically, we have all teachers do 3rd grade. We have one teacher who will service all of our 3rd grade students with IEPs. We have one teacher that will service all of our 4th grade and all of our 5th grade. It doesn't work that way. So our case managers, we've already sat and talked and troubleshooted this. So we have one case manager who will service all of 3rd grade because they won't be doing the departmentalization. So that just makes sense to leave them. So then we have 3 other special education teachers who will have caseloads that are split between 4th grade and 5th grade. So that way we have 3 case managers who are able to service students at the same time, as opposed to one person trying to manage an entire grade full of students.
I think you just have a couple questions myself. You seem very excited about it, and I'm sure you've done all of your research. Just a couple of things that came to mind for me were the materials. I work in a school where we switch for one subject, and it can be challenging, of course, getting everything there. And then there's always the issue of don't touch anything in my desk. So that will be one challenge, is having the students move into someone else's space, and for the whole afternoon. Parent-teacher conferences, that will be tricky, I think. So it sounds just like and specials, too. It'll be a lot to coordinate.
So it will be a shift in mentality more towards the way the seating is in the multi-age classrooms, that students might be assigned a seat, but they wouldn't be assigned a desk per se, because to your point, then we were sort of removing that territorialization that might occur. Conferences are definitely something that I'm being very honest with you about. I'm still working that through in my mind, how we can make that piece work to benefit everybody. And I'm sorry, Selena, what was your third question?
Specials.
Specials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the scheduling piece is definitely very, very tricky, but Lauren has been a tremendous help, and we've been troubleshooting this, and I think we have it down. Fortunately, I spent 3 years at the high school working on scheduling ad nauseum, so I think that skill set is definitely helping me with this piece. We're just about there.
And subs, that'll be the other issue. A substitute would have to then manage 2 classrooms. But
Yes,
other than
you're
that,
right.
I think it's worth a shot, and it'll probably, rejuvenate the team and mix things up. And I think the kids will be really excited about it. They always
think
want to
so,
switch
too.
classes. So
I think so too. So wish us luck, because we're definitely excited. And please, if as you're thinking of other things, don't hesitate to email me, because like I said, there could absolutely be little pieces of this that are getting lost. So I appreciate all the support and help you can provide.
Thank you for
I just-
sharing.
I have-
Stephen had one more
one
thing.
quick one. Are there any other districts doing this that you know of? This
Yes,
model?
so 2 districts that we have actually visited, Essex and North Branford. And they are finding a tremendous amount of success. Like we said, the data is split, but we're definitely thinking that we need to shake things up a little bit to maybe see some changes, because what we're doing isn't as effective as we would like it to be, but we have schools full of people working so hard. So when we started talking to other districts and they were having positive outcomes, we thought, you know what, maybe let's give it a shot.
How
right,
does that
Alan, go
work with
ahead.
half day? How does that work with half day? Does that
So it would be the same thing in terms of we would split the day. So if we came in for a half day and our day is, let's say, like 9 to 12, hypothetically, they would do an hour and a half in their ELA setting and then an hour and a half in their numeracy setting. We would split the day the same way. That's a good question, though.
So just to let you all know, we have been talking about this for a whole year. And like Ramsey said, I'm very proud of you for admitting it. The research is split. However, a lot of the things that you mentioned, I was a principal, I was a teacher, I did this. I saw a lot of pitfalls and I saw a lot of positives. So those were the things that I reviewed with Carrie and Ramsey at the beginning of the year of what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And they are still working on a lot of the what ifs, but we will meet regularly, look at the data, look at how it's going. The biggest piece is there's pros and cons to this. But some districts are seeing greater results when they're thinking it through, as much as Ramsey and Lauren and Carrie have thought this through. So I tease them and say, you have 2 years to make this work. But teasingly, I say it teasingly, but we will be monitoring this very, very closely to see what are the pros, what are the cons, what are our students getting out of. And I asked Ms. Bingington and Dr. McLean and Ms. Berry to not be married to this in any which way, shape, or form, and to make sure that the teachers are not married to this, because if it does not work, we will not skip a beat and go back to doing what we need to do. So with that being said, I think there are a lot of things that we haven't been discussed in the past when we put this together that are being discussed now. And things are different. Our coaching procedures are so much different than they used to be back 20 years when I taught. So I think we have thought of almost everything. There's going to be growing pains, but if it's not working to the advantage of our children, and that doesn't mean sometimes it's, there'll be certain days where it doesn't, and there's certain weeks that it will, and whatever it is. But overall, we need to be able to see that the data and both quantitative and qualitative data is showing is that this is good for the kids in Cromwell in grades 4 and 5. So we're keeping a close eye on this, and knock on wood, everything will work out really well. We need to try something different. We definitely know that.
Lori had a question.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm looking at it through the lens of for a student on IEP who requires team meetings with parents, just touching on kind of what Matt said with the teachers collaborating. I'm also looking at it through the lens of a parent who may have several PPTs during the year, monthly team meetings. Both teachers would need to be available for those meetings. It wouldn't be okay just for one to attend. So just looking at it like that, the importance of having both teachers there in this setting at this age is really critical. So just wanted to point that out. Sure, you already thought about that.
Without a doubt. I couldn't agree more. And Lori, you know my heart has always been deeply embedded in special education, so that is always at the front of my thoughts as we're planning.
Just thinking, like, if there was a PPT, you need to get coverage for 2 teachers, you know, that kind of thing. I think that's going to come up.
Yes, absolutely.
Not a deterrence to do it. I'm just
Nope,
thinking
but
about
something to plan for.
possibilities. Yep.
Yes.
And one more thought I had is I think it'd be really great for teachers, especially if maybe some are stronger in reading than they are in math, so they don't necessarily have to teach the one that they're not strong in. But on the other hand, if we wait 2 years and then change it back, then
That's why
they'll
part
lose
of
their
the
skills.
deal is they still have to, that third PLC is every teacher has to know what's happening in ELA if you're teaching science and math, because part of this is we're teaching the whole child. That's part of elementary education. And in a lot of other countries, they start sooner with switching. We wait. But you have to know what's going on in the other classroom. I never want a teacher to say you have to wait to get that question answered when you go see your ELA teacher. You have to be able to answer these questions, and you still have to know what's going on, and you still have to receive that professional development so that if someone was to leave, and we have too many teachers teaching ELA and we need you now to move and teach math, you need to be able to do that. So that's another thing that we've talked a lot about.
Mm-hmm. Sure, go ahead.
And also wondering what we would do if we had an uneven number of teachers.
So, as Dr. Macri mentioned, we are on a 2-year pilot. So right now, as we've looked out for the next 2 years, we are in good shape for maintaining 6 4th grades and 6 5th grades. Those first 2 years, as we've talked about, there are definitely going to be some learning curves, and we'll have a better idea of where we're going from there. But even all the way down to kindergarten, we have small enough numbers in classrooms that I don't anticipating us in even the next 4 years needing more than 6 classrooms per grade level.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Alicia.
Are there budget implications to this? As I'm thinking about Lori's question of 2 teachers needing class coverage, is that additional substitutes you're anticipating, or do you think it's cost neutral?
I believe it's cost neutral, but honestly, only time will tell.
The PPT thing might be a little, but not much.
All right, Matt.
I promise this is the last one. I promise I might break that promise.
His last series of questions.
I'm very intrigued by this. I'm sorry. It's my
No, it's
mind
okay.
is going.
I was too. That's why we landed here today.
Just, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there to make sure it's under consideration. You know, as Dr. Macri mentioned, you know, it's going to have to be kind of flexible because there's going to be a lot of what ifs that are not answered yet. Just making sure that there is consideration to regularly and honestly receive feedback from the teachers, right? And not having, like, you know, one person kind of represent a group of teachers and then share feedback is not necessarily as effective as being able to have, you know, we have a 20-minute meeting where let's just talk things through. What are you experiencing? What are the difficulties you're seeing, and kind of group problem solving, because that tends to, you know, we arrive at solutions more quickly when there's, you know, more of the stakeholders involved all at once. So just making sure that that's under consideration too. I think this is a fun idea. I think it could be a really good idea, but it's going to take a lot of work and organization from everyone involved, I think. So.
And you're right, taking the temperature of the climate as we move through this will be important. We want our teachers to feel supported. We want them to feel safe and heard.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and good luck rolling this out with the parents.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Update 2025-2026 district calendar, reference D. So what was the change there?
I know you are all sick of looking at it. We're mortified that we keep bringing it to you. We wanted more time to talk about parent-teacher conferences with our leadership team, and we're constantly trying to improve this. This may not be the answer, but we want to try it for next year. We just want to try to have parent-teacher conferences all in 1 week. We would start with November 5th, 6th to the we've done it, I'm sorry, from the 5th, 6th to the 12th and 13th, 11th, 12th, and 13th and 14th. We want to change it so that it's not 2 weeks, it's just 1 whole week of conferences for the whole district. So we'd like to give this a shot and see how it works out, instead of a week before and a week after. And that's the only change for today.
Questions, Alicia?
No, just I was going
okay.
to make a motion to approve if you don't.
Okay, I just said one thought, I guess, is who it would really affect is parents that have kids in all the schools, which
Yeah,
won't
so
affect
you're-
that many, but that's a lot of conferencing for 1 week. But
Yeah, it's like you're out 1 week. We talked about that. You may be out 1 week twice for 2 kids, or it won't matter if you have 2 kids in the same school because you're there, most likely you'll have planned to do that. But it's really if you have 2 or 3 in secondary and elementary.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
it'll be tricky. Okay.
It falls better with splitting up of the time of when the material is taught. So we want to give it a try.
Okay. Any questions? No. Is there a motion to approve the calendar again? Alicia, is there a second? Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Calendar is approved. And we have our minutes and motions from our minutes from our March 11th regular meeting. Sorry. Reference E. Is there a motion to approve those? Kelly, is there a second? Alan, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Alicia, any other abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. They are approved. Stipend approval. You have reference F in your packet. Any questions there? Okay, we'll move on to informational human resources personnel activity reference G. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you know what? I was thinking since there were no new stipends being offered, so we don't need to take action, right? Okay, so that's just a mistake.
'Cause it's
It does say that. You're right.
Yeah. Only when
Okay,
it's-
so no action needed. Okay, so personnel activity reference G. Any questions there? I do have one correction. It just looks like one resignation says first grade at WIS. Obviously, it's ECS, right? Just one little typo.
First grade. Yes.
Okay, so it's
At
ECS.
ECS,
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Alicia?
We have someone retiring after 32 years,
Yeah,
so I think it's
it's
worth
been
a
on her
mention. That's
It was
oh, it's
on her
already-
last month too.
Oh, was
and
it
I
really?
already recognized
Oh,
him, but
see,
I
I
missed.
missed-
But he's
I
so
missed last
wonderful.
month's meeting, so
he's so wonderful. I recognized
All
him
right.
again. It ended up on here again by accident. Mike Ensign, he's awesome. We definitely appreciate everything he's done for Cromwell Public Schools. We're going to miss him. He just has an incredible personality and love for what he does. He's really funny. So we appreciate him very much. So yeah, it just ended up on this one. I acknowledged last month, but he's worth acknowledging twice.
All right. Principal reports, informational principal reports. Any questions on those? All right, then we have a bunch of policies on for, no, we don't. We don't have any policies on for second read. We have some on for first read. Any questions on policies A through, well, we're repealing some, so A through F. No questions on those, so we can move those to second reading at the next meeting. And then the repealed, we don't have to do anything on those, right? They're just
we
repealed.
just-
Do we have to vote on
have
that?
to vote together,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Is there a motion to repeal items G through X?
No, it's on the second page too. Double A.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Sorry,
So
double A.
long.
Thank you for catching that. Is there a second? So it's Lori. Is there a second? Catherine, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Those are repealed. Board committee reports. Policy met tonight, and there's also reference R, which are, I assume, the minutes from the last meeting. Any questions, or did you want to add anything from policy tonight?
Yeah, so what we had done was we were supposed to do policy on May 13th. We swapped and did it tonight. It swapped with facilities. However, there was an issue that came up. There was something that was missing from the packet, and it can't wait. So just so everybody knows, but we're still going to have facilities unless you decide to change it from 6 to 6:45, and then policy will meet at 6:45 on May 13th just to review the one item that was not in the packet. So,
Okay. And
Yeah.
it couldn't be changed just for clarification because it was a special meeting because we moved it. So maybe you already said that, but that
Yeah.
was why.
And we already made sure that there's. I know
There's
what you're
coverage.
saying. Yeah,
There's coverage.
I'm not just being
I'll be there.
proactive because that was the whole reason we swapped it, because we didn't have quorum. So Selena's gonna fill in just to do that one item. That will take like 10 minutes. So
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
and that's it.
All right, thank you. And facilities and technology, nothing there. All right, topics for future agendas. We did talk about circling back on the transportation issue after we know more. I don't know.
Do you want to wait until after legislation?
Yes, definitely. I just don't want it to fall off my.
I wrote it on my.
Okay.
And we should probably also talk about whatever comes out of this special education legislation post-session as well, because some of it may impact the work that we do.
All right. So do you want to just include that in an
could do
update
that.
after the fact? to us?
Yeah, after this legislative session, we're gonna have to talk, hopefully, because we really don't know what's gonna happen with all the changes between the federal funding, and there's gonna be a lot of, I believe there's going to be a lot of switching of funding, and how it exactly affects us, I have no idea yet. It's just way too early. So I'll keep you up posted, and
Likely we won't know until the session ends beginning in June, but then they do all sorts of narratives and information about the budget, which probably won't come out until July or August, so.
and then they'll change it again in September.
Yeah.
and October.
And then they'll go into a special
I'll
session to
just
do
keep
more.
you as updated as I can.
And then,
Matt.
so I get that we're gonna, the legislation stuff, we're gonna add it to, I'm assuming sometime in June or whatever, but should we also do maybe an update on, because the WIS, the changes at WIS are pretty significant, and, you know, once it goes out to families, they're gonna be getting a lot of feedback. Should we maybe throw in an update on that? Doesn't have to be lengthy, but just kind of aware
On the
we're at.
response from families?
Just what the reception is, if anything's come up that's required some changes, just, or are we just gonna include that kind of as a normal course anyway?
Can't we just wait till they roll it out at the start of the school year and see how
That's a good idea.
it happens?
I'm fine with that. I'm just wondering if there's
I mean, it's not
there'll
like
be any changes between
it's not
now
like it'll
and
be
the end of the
changed based
year.
on reaction. So, yeah, maybe we'll just wait
That's
until
fine.
next year, unless anyone else has thoughts. Steve?
As far we discussed board self-evaluations, I reached out to Nick Caruso with CABE, and he's going to get back to me with some dates, and I'll share that for future when he's available and we could get on the agenda.
Okay.
Have him come in and just explain it, and
He'll come in, you mean?
yeah, he can come
Okay.
in, explain it, and then we can decide if it's something we want to move forward with as a board.
Okay, let me know. Anything else? All right, comments, updates, and announcements from board members. We'll start at this end. Steve, you have anything?
Several of us attended the Board of Finance meeting. I thought overall went well. There was some confusion on how we presented some of the numbers. Enz and I spoke briefly at the meeting about it. I'd like to possibly propose this like just a sidebar kind of debrief meeting with some of the Board of Finance members and some of our members, and just see if there's things that we can do on the next go round just to make it easier for everyone involved. So just something, again, maybe we'll put on an agenda and talk about it, or if we're willing to, small group, meet with small group of Board of Finance, involve Chris, Enza, whoever would like to involve, I think it would go a long way.
Okay. Well, we do the meetings ahead of time every year, and so those do happen. How do you feel about a debrief meeting? You need a break, don't you? Give it some space.
Nothing but honest. I am honest, just to a fault. So we have been budgeting the education, and I don't mean Cromwell, I mean education nationally. It is incredibly difficult to explain to anyone because you actually can't believe that this is how we budget. But we have really no other way to do it, and it has been working. I'm not patting myself on the back, but in 6 years, I've done a pretty damn good job at keeping us afloat and through a pandemic. I have superintendent friends who have gone in with a 10% increase. I have superintendent friends that are $9 million in the hole. I believe what I know about budgeting and education is what it is, and it's so complicated for anybody to understand. And I believe what happened last week was what people were trying to understand is the formula for reimbursement rates for special education. And I think it comes across as if we are not being honest, because it is so ridiculous the way that it is done that you really truly think that someone's lying, because that's how ridiculous it is.
I think they're also trying to look at the trends, right? We don't have trends of this year we received this percentage, this year we received this percentage, this year we received this percentage. So it's just simple things like that we could provide to the Board of Finance to see the trends of what we actually get reimbursed for. And if we're sticking to those trends, if we're estimating way outside those trends.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're asking for, and those are the things I'd like to explore and just provide some feedback.
Yeah, and that, honestly, at the end of the day, you, the Board of Education, you dictate to me what you want to see in that presentation. I provide so much information, but if there is something that you would like to see differently added and perhaps done slightly differently, we will do it. Some of the things that I believe are being asked of us, we don't have the capacity to do, nor is it useful of our time. Because as Steve and I spoke, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers work out. At one point I was like, wait a second, please ask questions, but as far as questioning the integrity of the process and our numbers, it's not that it's insulting, it's scary. When you were talking about $40 million. And I have my eyeball on that number I walk into Chris's room every single day and we talk about everything that we're doing. So I think part of it is trying to explain a formula that is so complicated to explain even to the educators, and then actually believing that that's the formula that the state uses, and then it changing. Like, there's a lot that plays into this, and then it changing so quickly. If there are ways that you believe as the board, that you feel, that you think I should add into the slides, and I'll be honest with you, gosh, this is going to take like forever to do when we don't have I'll tell you, that you think will help that meeting go more smoothly. But I am more than happy to do it.
And it might be cutting some of the slides you already have that they're not finding to be a benefit that you're spending time on. So there might be a little bit of give and take here, right? It's not to try to add more work; it's try to make it more efficient.
Yeah,
right? That's all I'm trying to look at from my perspective and dealing with budgets and things all the time. I think there's a way we could be more efficient with our presentation and provide more valuable information. And we're asking questions here; they're asking the same questions in those meetings,
and it's a
lot of time.
It's
the same thing over and over again. So if we could figure out how to get those questions answered in a presentation, it would save everybody time.
Yeah. I mean, whatever, at the end of the day, you are the Board of Education. I follow your directive, and whatever you want me to do, and I think I made that clear that evening, that I don't make some of the decisions that we're going to end up having to make at the end of this year. I'll be running by you. I'm not just going to make decisions about a lot of money without your input.
So what I'd like to propose is that I would lead let's call it a subcommittee of anyone else that wants to join on the Board of Ed, meet with the Board of Finance, and put a list of suggestions forward to the Board of Ed on my own time.
I would suggest anyone here that has suggestions, especially those that attended and saw the whole process, email me with your, suggestions, recommendations, and then I'll forward them along. They'll take a look at it, and then we could discuss it at a future meeting, any of the points that you...
Yeah, I would like to talk it out with all of you first.
Yeah, I think Dr. Macri wants it to come from us, not
because I want it to be something that you all want in moving forward.
Sure. That's fair.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So if anyone has any suggestions, recommendations, feel free to email me and I'll pass them along. Alicia.
First, just a congratulations, because I think that's pretty great that we got the budget through at 6%, and I know it's sad to see any money cut, but I think that's a really good process. So kudos to you and to Chris and to everybody else involved. I just wanted to share, this is Autism Acceptance Month this month, and I wanted to make sure we recognized it here. It's a really big deal. It moved in 2020 from autism awareness to autism acceptance, because it's not just about being aware of people with autism, but it's about celebrating the uniqueness and we keep saying what makes us different makes us special. So that's what we're really celebrating this month. And I'll invite everybody. Edelbrook is hosting a big walk to celebrate autism acceptance on Saturday, just down the street on our campus in Hicksville Road. It's supposed to be outside, but I think it is going to absolutely pour. So we will figure out how best to fit 300 to 400 people in our gym and in our school. But everybody could get to see our school, so that's the plus side, and we're still going to have fun, and all of our individuals come and participate, and our students come and their families, and everybody is welcome to join us.
Thank you.
It starts at registration at 9. The event starts at 10.
Okay, best of luck with
If
that.
you can't come, watch Fox 61 because they'll be broadcasting from there.
Nice. Kelly, nothing? Catherine, did you have something you wanted to add? No? Okay. And I just wanted to say thanks for sending the message out about the referendum, because
Oh, yeah.
I've been wanting that to happen for a long time now, and you got it out. And
Right?
yes.
I followed every rule. I read every rule, but at least I drove Lisa nuts because I want to make sure that I'm speaking within my. So
It's just
hopefully-
informational,
No, it's
you know?
just informational. People can vote however they want to vote. We just need people to come out and vote.
And then the quiet period, I'm finding out when that is, so that maybe we could do a reminder too.
Oh yeah, let me know. It's been pretty confusing.
'Cause it's
trying
pretty
to find
early.
The right quiet period. May 6th, between 12 and 8 p.m. here. So there's the regular budget referendum for the town, for the Board of Ed, and then there'll also be a question about the solar panels. So if you live in Cromwell and you are a registered voter, if you're not, we give you the link on how to get registered, and we're going to try to look into helping register our students who have turned 18 so they can practice their vote to write, the right to vote. That too. Their vote to write too. They don't want to vote on writing.
All right, thank you. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
All right,
Thank you
Lori?
all. I thank you all for your support with the budget process and everything else.
Of course. Nothing, Lori? Alan?
As of yesterday, we reached a tentative agreement with the Cafeterias Workers Union.
Oh.
So I think they have,
Thanks for representing us.
they have a little group meeting, then they'll hopefully see that next month.
Okay.
They can
We
try to
appre- we
fast track
appreciate
it.
it.
Yep.
Thank you. And Matt?
Just, Mr. Butwell, just you crushed it with your presentation, and you took a lot of fire and a lot of heat, and you were an absolute professional under fire in that meeting. At the moment you were under fire, I was really impressed with the way you conducted yourself and answered those questions. So thank you.
What about me?
You were too, but
This isn't your first rodeo.
Right, you've done it before.
The funniest thing was what I heard. You could tell by my feet.
I might have shared that.
I listen.
And it is very true. My family will agree.
My area of expertise is behavior, so yes, I noticed those little things. But no, it was his first shot at it, and he absolutely destroyed
I'm
it.
teasing you. You did a great job.
All right, and with that, meeting adjourned at 8:32. Enjoy your night.